Nina phoned up and asked if we give a toast, and I'm hard of hearing. I thought she said, will you give a roast? And I said, yes, gladly. When Mark was a little boy, a long time ago, Rubik's Cube was very popular. And Mark got a Rubik's Cube and he took it out of the box and he twisted and he twiddled, and you all know how Rubik's Cubes work. In 15 minutes he had the thing finished, he put it on the table and walked out the room, and I thought, whoa, I can do that. So I picked up the Rubik's Cube, and after 2.5 hours I was ready to throw the thing across the room. It was then I realized that Mark might be a little bit smarter than his dad. A few years later he met Nina. Mark can usually figure anything out. But he's working on it, and he made a big move with here. It took him 16 years, but finally.
So he may be smart, but he's a slow learner, right? Because it took him all this. Well, I think one of the funny parts about Mark is that he was the guinea pig for everything. You know how the first child is? They have to learn, you have to learn through them. And I was a very gullible, I guess, 20-year-old. And to show how dumb I was as a parent, I'd never held a child. I'd never had anything to do with children. And they told me to bring a urine sample in to see if I was pregnant. I die now thinking about this to think how foolish I was. But I thought, well, this is an easy thing. I've seen my mother do it. She's got a kidney problem and she would fill these big jars. So what did? I washed out a giant pickle jar. And when I got to the doctor's office, I put the big giant bag on the counter, and the lady opened the bag. She said, "What is this?" And I said, "It's my urine sample." She said, "Oh." She says, "When is this urine sample from?" I said, "For 24 hours." That's what my mother used to do. And so she grabbed the bag, closed it up, and I hear all this laughing in the back. And I sit there thinking, there must be something really funny happening. And then the doctor came out. And he quickly closed it and ran into the back, and then there was more laughing. And so I found out that I was very ignorant of what you do when you have a baby. And the doctor was really nice to me because he was about 64 or 65, and he took me under his wing and he explained a lot of things that I had no idea of. And I'd never had anything to do with looking after babies. So he got me a Dr. Spock book and he gave it to me and he said, read it. But I was so sick, pregnancy sick, I never did. So when they finally brought me my baby in the hospital, and here was Mark, and I said, I need to see my doctor. I need to see my doctor. And the doctor came, and he says, what's wrong? I said, my baby's retarded.
Oh my God.
And he said, what on earth would you make you say that? I said, well, his eyes were crossed. He couldn't hold up his head. I said, I'm sure a baby isn't supposed to be like this. And so he said, oh my goodness. He said, you don't know much about babies. And I thought, no. And so I get home, and what do I do at midnight? Call the doctor. I've really got a problem. There's definitely something wrong with this baby. I said, are you sure he's not retarded? He won't stop crying. I said, He said, well, what have you done with this baby? I said, I fed him, I've done everything, and nothing will stop him from crying. He said, okay, I'll stay on the phone, and you go and get a blanket. You fold it in a diamond shape, you put the baby in the blanket with his head at the top and his feet at the bottom, and you wrap the blanket round tight. Bring the baby to the phone. By the time I'd finished talking to the doctor, the baby was asleep. And he told me to go back and read the Dr. Spock books. So poor Mark had to go through a mother that had no idea what she was doing to the extreme. And I think he turned out wonderfully well. And I'm surprised. And so I can honestly say that Mark was my most caring and trustworthy child. I mean, if I ever wanted to get the truth, I'd go to Mark. He would always tell me the truth. He would always be the kid that was the most helpful. And all my pregnancies, I had 4 children, I was always really sick. And Mark would come home at lunchtime when I was pregnant, and he would do the lunch, and he would help me with the other kids. And he was definitely a really right-hand man, and I really appreciate that. And one time he came home and did the other kids' beans on toast, and I remember thinking, I better eat them, he's made them, it's the wrong thing to do. It seemed like that's all I ever did was throw up. But he was definitely a great boon in our lives, and he was the kind of guy that you always know that he cares. He's given me more good times and entertained me than anyone else, and he will just organize things. And then when he met Nina, it was really great. She just could organize Mark out of anything, which is difficult to do. And I want to tell you this other story. It's really interesting. The first time I ever heard of Nina was I called their phone, Nina Hansett, and I come, oh, who are you? And she said, oh, I'm Nina, and I'm friends with Mark. And she said, talk to Mark. And I said, oh, I was just wanting to ask about a cruise, and I don't know if Nina heard or how it happened, but I said, well, you can come on this cruise for free. You know how they let you go 2 people for free if you pay for 2? So Mark said, that's not going to happen. Well, you know Nina, it happened. She came. And so the first little while, I'm just like, oh my goodness, this lady, I just can get along with her so good. Say to Mark, oh, I really like Nina. I really like Nina. And we just went head over heels. Nina and I, we just felt like we were in love with each other. We just wanted to be together all the time. And so I started to ask her questions. And as I'm talking to her, she says, oh, I have a pain in my back. And I said, what? I can't tell that story Okay, I won't tell that story. Nina's in control and her eyes are boring holes. But here, I'll tell you it different. I was walking over the bridge today with Carson, and Carson said, when did you first meet me? And I said, well, it was probably on the cruise. And he said, was I there? And I said, yes. And he said, how was I there? When was it? I said, it was in 1999. And so I said, you're an embryo. And so I thought he was quite impressed with that. And so by the time the cruise was over, I'd figured out a whole bunch of stuff without asking any questions. So when she phoned to tell me she was pregnant, I was able to tell her that I knew before she told me. And so I just love it that I'm a soulmate with Nina. Mark couldn't have chosen anyone that is more like me. We just get along like a husband. I'm so grateful for you, Nina, for helping Mark reach his potential.
Ooh, it's getting hot in the hot seat over there.
I'm making you nervous. My husband just poked me. So I know it's time. I know it's time to stop before I say something I shouldn't. But I love you both. I have such joy. It's wonderful.
Too late for
Wonderful
that.
to see you so happy. God bless the marriage and you. Thank you. Bye-bye.